Welcome to Converge. It is November 2025. Today we'll be recapping a discussion from Money2020 Las Vegas that happened live on the Converge stage last week. We bring together Sudipto Das, the VP of Engineering from Convera, Nilesh Dusane, the Global Head of Institutional Payments at AWS, and Shawnna DelHierro, the Chief Information Technology Officer at SoundHound AI, to discuss building AI-driven infrastructure to accelerate cross-border payments innovation. It's a great one. You won't want to miss it. Please enjoy.
This is Converge, a podcast from Convera. Come with us as we shape the future of finance.
So, here we are again. Being the check-in. Shawnna, do you want to just tell everyone who you are, first of all, and we'll start there.
Happy to. Shawnna DelHierro, CIO for SoundHound AI, a voice enablement and automation company that crosses over financial services, automotive, restaurant, retail, enterprise business at global scale.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Nilesh, you work for a very well-known organization. Do you want to explain what you do and who they are?
Sure. Thank you. So, my name is Nilesh Dusane, and I lead institutional payments at AWS. And in my role, I get to work with our financial services customers, payment companies like Convera, financial institutions, and market infrastructures all over the world to help them build payment solutions on AWS. And it's very exciting to be here.
And lastly, but certainly not least, Sudipto, your company kindly sponsored the stage that we were all on this morning.
Yes, it was. It was great energy all around today. So I'm Sudipto Das. I lead the global engineering at Convera. And for those who doesn't know about Convera, we are a global leader in the cross-border payment.
Yep.
We help businesses transfer money across the borders.
So look, for listeners, we had this conversation about 6 hours ago on stage. The title of the talk was Building AI-Driven Infrastructure to Accelerate Cross-Border Payments Innovation. So why is this an important topic for people to talk about whilst we're here at a conference like Money2020?
Well, I think there are three main things that at least we see are impacting or disrupting the industry, particularly like when it comes to the cross-border payments. One is definitely like the stablecoin, one is the AI, another is the embedded payment. So as we have seen, this whole Gen AI and the LLM has come a long way. And now with the agentic, we are seeing like a real motion where things have become like a real, well, like any industry, anything. And that's where we see like there is a huge potential. But we really need to be cautious about how do we innovate and how do we really like embrace this. And that's why it is very important to have this discussion.
Look, this is a slightly different when we're on stage. You can all just jump in a bit more and have a chat with each other. I mean, look, Convera are sponsoring the stage, but when you two decided to say yes to this panel, your time's fairly precious. What was it about this subject that made you go, yeah, you know, I want to spend time. I want to talk about this.
I think for me, from a solution perspective, we have so many companies coming to us saying, we want intelligent automation, we want agentic technology, we want to reduce our human in the loop, our human bias, or we want to improve our threat detection. So the importance of talking through what fundamentals and foundational, tenets there are of how you go at this at scale are really important to me from my role. And so I love any opportunity that we have to help companies to coach them, to nurture the conversation forward. But I think that there's a lot to be said for the way that we go into all of these eyes wide open. It's not anytime you implement, whether it's a chatbot or an agent, a conversational agent, it's much like having a new employee. You don't just bring someone on and then just allow for them to go and to act within your organization with complete autonomy. It's the same thing with a digital agent or, agentic or deterministic technology. You're not allowing for them just to come and act within your enterprise at scale without monitoring either their hyper capability or their underperformance. You're always tuning and looking to see how you can make that more effective. So I think there's just so many different dynamics to how we approach this, but how we do so, not only protecting our own organizations, but protecting our client data, our client assets. And I just think it's such a dynamic topic right now that it just evolves every day.
I mean, this might be wildly naive, but surely in payments, there is less scope for employees to experiment with these tools. Because if I think about a lot of the organizations that I talk to in health tech or marketing or whatever it might be, there's a trust access gap, but it's fairly broad by comparison. Because, hey, I'm going to download ChatGPT. I'm going to use Notebook LM. I'm assuming that's not the case in this industry, right?
No.
Go ahead.
Oh, so, I mean, one of the things which is very exciting, at least from an AWS standpoint, is we are, and AWS and payments in general, which is we are at a very interesting time. And here's where I'm going with this, which is there are payment rails, like real-time payment rails going live all over the world. As we speak, there are roughly 80 countries either in the process of going live or are already live with instant payments. And that creates an opportunity for us to do cross-border instant payments. So that's number one. Number two is coming back to the AI piece of it. So traditional AI and machine learning has been used by the financial industry for a while, almost like 10 plus years. Generative AI is now as in the last year or so, has been getting a lot of attention. And what we are seeing working with customers all over the world is different customers are in different stages of using generative AI. And they generally fall into three categories, the type of work that they are doing. Yeah. This is a regulated industry, as we all know. So customers generally start with internal use cases. That could be improving productivity, whether it's for engineers or automating workflows, those types of things. So that way they get to become comfortable. They get comfortable with using the technology. What are the guardrails, like you were talking about, to put in place? So that way you know what you're getting into from a decisioning stand. So that's step one. Step two is all around risk management, fraud mitigation, those types of things, right? Things that we talked about on the panel earlier today, which is how do you enable payment companies to make decisions in real time around the risk profile of a particular transaction or around the risk profile of a particular customer, whether it's a individual or a corporate or whatever the case might be. So if you accelerate or make those things as fast as possible, you are, as a result, reducing the friction in the payment process and then, making those real time. But the last thing which is really exciting from what we see is new value creation. And, once customers are comfortable with the internal use cases, which is improving productivity or risk management, other things, then they start thinking about, okay, what new services can I offer to my customers, which can be a value add on top of basic banking and payment capabilities that customers offer. I'll give you an example. So basic banking and payments, right? We all know money movement is moving money from one account to another faster, better, cheaper. But what if you can add additional value on top of that? So as an example, one of our customers has built a cash flow forecasting solution on top of a payment. So what they do is they accurately, they help a CFO at a company accurately forecast that they're going to be short dollars or long euros 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And that is interesting, right? That is value, new value you're bringing to the table. And then you're wrapping basic payments capabilities as a subscription model within that value-added service. So that's new value creation for both the end customers, which is the corporates in this example, the customers that Convera targets, businesses, and as well as individuals, like, people like us, when we are doing things around payments. So the payment services can be hyper-personalized. So that's what we are seeing quite a bit in the industry.
Just to pick up on
exciting.
To pick up on one word or one phrase there, you said, what if? And one of the things we talked about on stage earlier, and forgive me, I can't remember of the three of you exactly who kind of picked up on this point first, but was that companies needed to be very clear about what their goals were before starting to implement these technologies. I recently interviewed the head of product, I was going to say platform, but it's head of product for Square. And Square are using agentic to help give very small businesses access to the kind of knowledge that a CFO might give them. But obviously these are small businesses. It might be like an independent coffee shop who are never going to scale to the point where they can hire a CFO or would need a CFO, but that insight's really, really valuable. There's a really nice, narrow, clear value add to a customer of that size. But the companies that you're talking about, it is a kind of a what product, what if, what can we do with this? It feels a lot more woolly. How many organizations are really getting that goal setting, asking the right questions right to make sure that they are offering the right solutions and not just offering a solution?
Yeah, I think it's a journey, right? Like I'll go back to like what Nilesh just mentioned about like being comfortable. We are exactly on the same journey, right? The value that we offer to the customer and the type of customer that we have is like a very widespread, right? We also have the small businesses, they have the very similar need, but we also have like the universities and we also have like the large scale businesses. Now, if we really look into the B2B cross-border payment, the way I see that it's a two-part, right? One is like the movement of the goods and services and the movement of money, right? And if you bring those two together, there is a complexity in that. Right? Like these two are interdependent, but there are also external factors that influence this. For example, like the volatility in the market, right? Your FX rate and all of this actually impacts like the CFO for the large organizations. So the use case of the value creation that may come up for these large organizations is like how we can bring all of this information together and create like a better recommendation, and going even beyond that, just not really like making the recommendation, but taking action on behalf of the CFO at the right time and the right decision. And that's where I think like the agentic AI would be like a huge value creation for those customers.
I agree. And I think, one of the really key pieces of that is the understanding of the long play, so that do the short, see the long, but also understanding like what is required from a threat modeling perspective. And I said that earlier today, like it can't be episodic, like it has to be immersive, like in everything that you do. Understanding like what are each of those pitfalls that may exist, and we have to be really intuitive. Like we can't just look at the obvious, right? I mean, there are the things that have always existed. Yeah. The pervasive threats that exist for our clients and our customers and for our native development, for our engineers and our product owners. But it's looking further than that. It's, what actually, do we have in the way of failures and vulnerabilities of our technology stack? What do we have in the way of our cloud development versus our legacy on-prem? There was such a huge movement for us to move everything away from our mainframe and our AS400 and our data centers to get everything to cloud. Now we're seeing that there's risk that exists with that all cloud model. And I think that there's kind of a shift to go back to some redundancy to have at least some level of on-prem capability. For connectivity's sake, what does that look like at scale? But there are just so many unknowns that I think still exist that every day we have to continue, the flywheel that's there around the way that we want to develop at scale, but how do we anticipate those that are unknown risks and vulnerabilities, and how do we help our teams to constantly be thinking about them while we're asking them to innovate and to be creative around how they, look to be best in class and best in market when delivering technology for all of our customers. It's a huge challenge that's upon us. It's not one that falls. It certainly, it's not lost on me that we have a big undertaking ahead.
And it's not only the vulnerability, it's also about the privacy, right? The privacy of the information plays a major role. Like everyone needs to be comfortable or at least have the right measure to make sure like the information that we are sending to the LLMs, like those are stay secure, those are not really creating any privacy concern.
Yep. And data democratization, there's another whole endeavor. There's a piece of that. We want to use the data to continue to mature your models. And, for our customers, I want to isolate, protect, dedupe, de-identify, mask, and protect all of their information. At the same time, I want to allow for their information to be ingested and to continue to build and mature their unique and isolated instance. And so it's a very careful dance and balance around how we're using that for agentic purposes, which, I mean, the true definition of agentic is it's constantly listening, maturing, and growing.
Yeah.
But how do you do that
Constantly
in a way that's always respecting the privacy and sensitivity of very delicate information?
I mean, listening to you talk there, it is little wonder that you talked about explainability on stage this morning, and I've heard other people talk about the importance of explainability in the sector as the day has progressed, because there are all of those unknowns. And if you're working in a heavily regulated environment, getting to the point where executives trust that AI can make decisions on behalf of the business would appear to be a really big ask at the moment. How do you get there?
Like explainability is still like a biggest challenge, right? Like in the regulated environment, like as you were mentioning, for us, we need to explain. And then also like we need to absolutely have a deterministic, reversible way of doing things. Like if anything goes wrong, how do we reverse that? Because if any payment goes wrong to the different payee, like no one will be happy. Like the customer will not be happy, the payees will not be happy, the regulators will not be happy. So before we roll out anything in the large scale, we absolutely need to make sure we have the audit trail of that. We have the complete audit log of things. We have the full explainability, like why certain decisions are made and like how those decisions were made. And that's where we a little bit stuck. Like the LLMs are like a big box, right? Like it's not really hosted by any of like companies like ours. So when it comes to the decision making and the knowledge, like we rely on those. And that's where we have certain like challenge in going like a full scale of like rolling it out, that how best we can really like explain all the decisions that are made through that.
Yeah, but I think about it just at a macro level, which is if you go back, say 20 years or, even 25 years when we first started online banking or e-commerce, right? People were apprehensive, which is, okay, I'm going to buy something online. I don't know if I'm going to actually get that in the mail or not. And that was a breakthrough. So I don't want to say breakthrough. That was a change in mindset that we all had to go through, right? Which is, as we get comfortable in using something, then that's when it gets to scale. And in the context of generative AI, that's where we are at right now. This is a very nascent time in terms of figuring out different use cases for generative AI. There are organizations who figured out where it works for them, where it doesn't work for them. And as individuals, as society, we start being comfortable with using these technologies. That's when we'll start to figure out what are some of the guardrails we can put around it. I mean, 5-6 years ago, who would have thought we would be riding in driverless cars?
Yeah.
But yes, if a payment goes wrong, worst case we lose money.
Yeah.
But if a driverless car gets into an accident, there's a much bigger implication for that, right? So
On stage this morning, you talked about unnecessary and necessary friction.
Yeah.
Just picking up on that point, what's the role of a human going to be increasingly, when it would feel like the beginning of the process human, the middle of the process increasingly AI, the end of the process human, because we're not quite sure that the middle of the process is going to be 100% accurate. But what does that look like? What do you think the person...
Slightly different, actually. So at the beginning of the process, it could be like a recommendation.
Okay.
Which is, hey, we know you are spending $1,000 every month. Maybe this is a new way or a new service that you could use to send the same transaction, which could be a lot more efficient. So that's like a recommendation. But a human still has to push a button to send that payment. That's number one. Number two is when you push the button, then comes all the checks and balances that happen as a part of that payment process, right? Which is risk check, compliance checks, validating beneficiary information, all those things, right? There is a lot of opportunity to optimize and make that process a lot more efficient, while still keeping a human in the loop to make sure we are doing all the checks before actually sending the payment, right? And the last point is around the beneficiary information. So if you think about cross-border payments, most of the friction happens at the end points, which is at the beginning or at the end. Maybe somebody doesn't give you the right account number, or somebody doesn't give you the right routing number. And that's where technology like AI and machine learning can look at prior history and see or predict that, okay, what are the chances of this payment being successful? And if the probability of that payment is not being successful is higher, then you can potentially identify why it could go wrong, and then prevent the payment from actually happening before. So you can tell the customer that, hey, I don't think this routing number is actually right. You might want to correct it. So you're offering a better experience by learning from patterns of successful payments and unsuccessful payments.
And they're in turn setting up the next customer for a better experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's scaling across your organization. You're not just improving the experience with that one customer. That's what's so beautiful about the growth and the expansion of the technology. You're improving the entire experience for your entire customer base. I think one of the things that I love so much about the augmentation of our staffing experience with agentic technology is our ability to meet our customers where they are, be it, and I may have said this earlier today, the days kind of blend together, but the emotional and the transactional experience, when you create a technology that's no longer just a legacy IVR, where it's all transactional. IVR was just, I give you information, I ingest one request at a time. I can't handle multiple intents. I have to re-authenticate or re-identify myself. But being able to take and handle multiple intents, multiple requests, prioritize them, but also recognize voice inflection, respiration, dialect, things that really transform the experience of the customer, that go from being transactional to being emotional and conversational, that take you out of the loop, that connect you with a human. So when I'm traveling internationally and suddenly I've been left on the side of the road because my driver and I couldn't communicate, my card now is lost, I've realized I left my wallet in the previous lift, my phone is at 0%, all of these things that are happening, and I'm trying to reach out to my bank, and that is emotional. I can't afford the number of push buttons to get through a traditional IVR phone tree to finally get connected to someone. I need the technology to recognize the emergency need of my call and to immediately take me out.
Yeah.
That's what's so beautiful about the evolution and the maturity and the growth of our technology, is its ability to do that. And so I think that's where I appreciate where we've come to, especially in healthcare and in finance. Like, we're delivering an experience, a transactional experience that requires 30 seconds to check my balance, to order a new card, to have it delivered to my existing address, to authenticate my persona, to do something for a balance transfer, or to make a payment on my account.
Yeah.
But immediately to recognize the need that I have, because I'm an important customer and I'm in a predicament and I need to speak with someone, and to accelerate me out to speak with that person who still exists within the 10 to 20 to 30% of population of humans who are still part of that call center experience, that customer success experience. They've now taken on a new role. They're no longer just the people who are processing through mundane use cases. They're people who are truly part of the customer care journey.
And it would be even better if they proactively reach out to you, right?
That's exactly right.
Which is instead of
and we have that now.
waiting for you to call them back.
Proactive. Yes, exactly right.
So they proactively reach out to you, and they try to address whatever your concerns might be.
So with Convera, you have the benefit of talking to a lot of different customers. As AI undoubtedly changes the industry, what are the metrics, what are the measurements you think that C-suite leaders are going to be viewed through the prism of?
Well, so as you're discussing, right, it's more of like being comfortable and being like going through the journey, right? And then we also follow the same very similar framework, like where we start with the productivity, right? And then go into the production and then the value creation. But for each of the use cases are very unique, and those will be measured for success differently. So when we talk about like our acceleration in our product development lifecycle, we look into the cycle time. Like when we talk about like the customer care, the acceleration in that, we talk about the customer experience around that, right? And then also what is the time for the case resolution. So those are like the metrics that we look at. But holistically, I would say, like from the leadership perspective, what we all look into is the speed of safe innovation. That is important because this Gen AI is opening up like the new opportunity for everyone, right? There is a continuous innovation, the fast innovation. So what we really need to measure is like how safely we are innovating that, so that our time is actually reduced from the conceptualization to the launch and the run. It's not only about like the launch, it's also about like running that product successfully and efficiently. We have to measure that. That acceleration and that speed is very, very key and important for us.
So we've done this conversation twice now. So you've had plenty of opportunity to consider this last question of each of you. And I'll ask you to try and kind of do it in 10 words or less. But what is the kind of the single defining thought that comes back to you when you think about this conversation that people should try and hold in mind? And look, if it's over 10 words, it's over 10 words. But you know, that single takeaway for an audience, for a listener, whatever it might be.
So I think where we are right now is we are in the stage of consuming recommendations, consuming information by, various technologies that is all around us.
Yeah.
Where I think will be going in another 2-3 years or so is being comfortable or getting comfortable in letting these technologies take actions on our behalf. Like, booking a vacation, hotel, flights, etc., etc. And I think that is going to be very fascinating.
Getting comfortable with the stuff that we're uncomfortable with now.
Kind of. Yes.
Earlier today, I think I brought up, I think if we were to fast forward, we'll be talking about how AI and agentic and modernized technology will have created new roles. But, if I were just to have, some key takeaways, I think the biggest and most pressing thing that I share with other leaders is, the need for governance is absolutely critical. Governance and communication are paramount on our list of roles and responsibilities as technology and security leaders. I mean, we have to. It's not a one-time communicate the mission and the vision of advancing technology. It's iterative. It's every day. It's part of what I tell my teams. You are stewards of the technology, but you are educators. Like, you have to constantly talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it's going to impact or affect you positively or in a way that might actually challenge the current process. We have to be really empathetic and emotionally intelligent. No longer can we just be the technologists who operate in a vacuum. And so I think, those are really, key facets of how we have to, exist. But I think also being really thoughtful around the way that we stand up our governance models to ensure that there are good guardrails that keep everyone safe and effective in the way that we deploy technology. It's moving so swiftly. If we're not very aware, and I did mention this earlier today as well, this is such the inverse effect of where we have people who are moving so aggressively in the adoption of technology in their personal lives, it's carrying over into what they want to do in the adoption of technology in their professional lives. We're getting the push in a way that we've not seen. So we have to be very steadfast in the way that we want to create that roadmap. Otherwise, the roadmap will be created for us.
Exactly, 100%. I agree with you. Like, it's not about being skeptical about this technology. It's the main thing is like this technology is here. It is disrupting. This is the fact, right? It is here. Being thoughtful, being like more analytical on that, like how it impacts. That is very important. That how do we embrace it and how we create it like more safely for our customers. That's important. Like the governance framework that you mentioned about, the security that you mentioned about. And then also having like the full structure for the innovation, that's very important. So it's happening, embrace it, and then just make sure it is safe for everybody.
Love it.
Perfect. Thank you so much
Thank you so much.
spending time having this chat. It's been lovely.
Fun.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.